What's up, guys? This is another short video I want to do on Luke 19:41 through 43, essentially. And this is right after Jesus does the triumphal entry. So he came to Jerusalem riding on the the foal of a donkey. And he's looking over at Jerusalem. And the reason I want to bring this passage up is because I think it really demonstrates free will, because we have only two choices in this situation. We have Jesus looking over Jerusalem, weeping for Jerusalem, and essentially, um, you know, being disheartened that Jerusalem didn't turn to God, even though Jesus knew that they weren't going to turn no matter what because he had predetermined it with the Father. Or we have a genuine Jesus emotional reaction to the fact that you know these people had choices and they could have recognized the Messiah, and things could have gone a somewhat different way. Granted, he may still have been the sacrifice, but it could have been done maybe in a different manner. None of us know. We don't know if God had to do everything to the exact detail of the way it occurred or not. That's where we get into these free will or determinism you know doctrines. But I think the scriptures definitely for me lean towards people had choices. So at the very least, I think there was a choice for more people to recognize Jesus. Maybe he still was going to die on the cross regardless, but more people could have turned to him. So I'll just say, Luke 19:41 real quick. So right here, and this is in the ESV. And when he drew near, and this is talking about Jesus, and when he drew near, he and saw the city, he wept over it, saying, "Would that you, even you, had known on this day the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes." So I want to pause right there. Why is he making a point crying over Jerusalem to say, "But now they are hidden from you"? So if they were always going to be hidden from him, no matter what, it doesn't really make much sense for him to be crying over Jerusalem. I mean, he knew if he knew it was going to happen, then why is he crying over it? It's like, do you cry every time something that is going to happen? I mean, granted, you go to the hospital, your loved one's about to die, you're still going to be emotional and cry when that happens. I get that. We can make those, arguments in that manner. But at the same time, he's making a point to say, you know, would that you, even you, had known on this day the things that make for peace. So right there, and then right after that, he says, but now they are hidden from your eyes. And then he goes on to talk about how the temple's going to be destroyed. So for the days will come upon you when your enemies will set up a barricade around you, surround you, and hem you in on every side, and tear you down to the ground, you and your children within you, and they will not leave one stone upon another in you, because you did not know the time of your visitation. So, right there, because you did not know the time of your visitation, again, points to the fact that, well, maybe they had a chance to know the time of the visitation, but they didn't figure it out. I just, I heard that verse today for some of this, study I was going through, and it really just stuck with me as like, wow. I've already spoken about this verse before, using Matthew, where Jesus talks about how I wish I could have gathered you under my arm like a hen gathers her chicks. I've used those verses before, but I think also using this Luke 19:41 and 42 verses are really persuasive, because the language within the Luke verses, not only is it like, Jesus weeping, saying, I wish I could gather you under my arms like a hen gathered her chicks, but he's using the, but now language, which means to me, it's so clear to me that there had to have been some sort of possibility. I mean, to say there was never a possibility with that type of language, but Jesus literally weeping and then saying, "But now things are hidden from you because you didn't recognize, the time of your visitation." And I'm paraphrasing the section there after that, but to me, it's really, like, it doesn't add up. if we're gonna make this argument that everything was predetermined there, and he's just emotional because what was predetermined is coming to pass. I mean, I don't know. It's there's obviously a bunch of other free will passages in the Bible besides these passages that I could go to. But this one in particular really does stand out to me as far as the language that's used. It's just such an uphill battle for me for people to try to say, well, Jesus was just distraught because, it was the culmination and what was going to occur, just occurred at that moment. I mean, but why is he literally so invested in the fact and then saying, but now these are hidden from you? I mean, to me, that's somebody that's clearly aware that there was a possibility that what he was doing could have, changed at least one other person, or maybe 100 or 1,000, or who knows how many more people. It seems to me like he is aware there was a possibility that they they could have done more. The people could have chosen wisely because God came to save souls, just like He comes to save our souls now. So if we're going to argue that God didn't try to save even one extra soul there, I mean that's an uphill battle for me. The people that want to argue everything's predetermined, and this is elect and non-elect, and some people were destined for these things and others weren't. I really don't like that doctrine. I think it's very unbiblical. I think it's very counter to the nature of God. um, God doesn't show partiality. God gives everybody a chance. That's clear throughout Scripture. God will give you a chance. If you want to fall on your own sword, that's your fate. But if you want to choose God, then you have a choice, and God is always willing and long suffering to allow that. But yeah, just add it to the way you guys interpret. When Jesus is weeping over Jerusalem, make sure you're not just using one gospel. I've had these discussions in the past, and I've only mentioned the Matthew, how I could gather you under my arms like a hen gathers her chicks verses, and I didn't always use Luke also, but definitely going to make a point to use Luke because of the language, but now, the language but now really shows to me a shift in what was possible. It's like if you give some, for instance, let's just think about how we would use, and I'll just read the verse again. So, I'll read 41 and 42 again. And this is again Jesus looking at Jerusalem, weeping over it. And when he drew near and saw the city, he wept over it, saying, would that you, even you, had known on this day the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. So he's crying because they didn't recognize the things that make for peace, which is the Messiah, obviously. But now they're hidden from your eyes. So again, if I tell somebody that same language, you know, I gave you a chance, but now I'm not gonna, be your boyfriend or your girlfriend anymore. You know what I mean? Whatever. Think about any relationship you ever had, or some money you offered somebody. You were gonna loan somebody money, but then they, before they didn't know you were gonna loan them money, and before they, you could say I'm gonna loan you money. They said, "Screw you! You never help me out. You're always a jerk to me." And then you say to them, "Well, if only you had known I was gonna loan you the money, but now." It's not going to happen. I mean, the usage of "but now" in that verse, I just think it shouldn't be understated. That's why when I read it today, it really jumped out at me. And yeah, just make sure if you're going to talk about, Jesus weeping over Jerusalem, you use all the gospels. So, make sure you use them all, because that way you can paint the whole picture. And again, the fact that Jesus himself is crying over Jerusalem, we can understand people that are, coming from determinism, making the argument about, like I said earlier, a relative who's terminally ill, and they're going to die anyways, but you still cry when they do die. I can understand a determinist, trying to use that type of, argument. Okay, cool. But it doesn't really fit with the "but now" aspect of it. To me, that's where they have a problem. That's where they definitely have to tell me like, well, why is he saying but now? Like, why didn't he just say now now the inevitable has happened, or this was destined to happen? But instead, he's upset that they didn't recognize something. He's literally crying. I mean, the Messiah is crying, the Son of God is crying over the fact that the people didn't recognize something, and then he's saying now it's going to be hidden from you. Does it seem like Jesus and the Father's nature is to be crying, upset that people didn't recognize something without God offering those same people a chance? Does that make sense? Does that really what, makes sense to determinist people? That God is crying, hoping and wishing that people had recognized, him in the way of peace, but he didn't even give them a chance to recognize him. I mean, I don't jive with that logic. I'm a free will person to the extreme of God gives us the choices, and obviously things are determined in ways in the Bible. Every single prophecy is a predetermined action by God. God is involved in our fates. God is able to, also be an active participant within this thing we call life. Obviously, he is the living God, the creator of all. And that's where I see, prophecy fitting into the story. Do I think everything that ever occurred is prophecy? No, I don't. That's where determinist people have, a serious uphill battle to me when they're trying to say that, me talking on my phone right now was a prophecy before the foundation of the world. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think I live in a world where I've been fighting moral battles my whole life, and if I try to do the will of God, I'll end up picking up my phone and having this conversation about the goodness of God and the love of God and the free will that God offers us to choose him, and not be fatalistic and say, people have no choice in the matter. Everything was determined. Just pray that you were one of the lucky ones God cast a lot for your soul before you were born. I'm not going to make that argument that I was determined to do this from the beginning of time. No, I think I could have gone another way. I think I could have been evil. I think I could have, not to say I'm not evil, like in the extent of what I am in relation to God, because I am evil compared to what God is. I'm definitely a sinner, and I'm definitely not going to be, righteous before God without Jesus. So I do want to make that clear. I'm not saying what I'm doing right now makes me, you know, immune to, you know, sin or worthy of God. That by no means. But what I'm saying is, I've had choices along the way in my life that have led me down this path. God sent angels to help me. Jesus himself in the flesh saved my soul from the devil. Um, I've been fighting battles ever since then to not sin, to serve God accordingly. And I'm still not there yet, but I'm trying. But, like I said, free will is an important aspect of our faith, guys. And, just read these scriptures for what they say, verses like Luke 19:41 and 42. Again, demonstrate free will to me. So I hope you guys, think about it, ponder it, and maybe you add some of this information into your discussions. And, feel free to come on my channel anytime. Obviously, I leave the link in the chat every show for anybody to come on. So if you're interested in these discussions, maybe you're a determinist and you want to make your argument felt, I'd love to have this top discussion with you. We can get into other verses and get more in depth. And God bless everybody and take care of yourselves. Thank you.